Now, this will not be the most timely video about the topic, about the Le Mans Daytona that Rolex released now a couple weeks ago already. But, you know, maybe it's going to give you a different perspective on things. So, apologies for the clickbait title, but I truly believe that this is the quote-unquote better Daytona than the Le Mans. And I'm going to tell you why in a second. And, you know, in true YouTube fashion, I didn't reveal the watch from the get-go, but we can go ahead and do that now. So this is the one Daytona that I believe is better than the Le Mans. This is reference 116508. It has been around for a very long time. It has recently just been discontinued. And so I'm really happy actually to have been able to, or that I'm still able to own one of those. And it's been very much, you know, it flew under the radar, so to say. Everyone was looking at the same reference, but actually at the so-called John Mayer Daytona, which I completely do not understand. And I think this is a sleeper. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, I'm not John Mayer. So I'm not going to have that reach, and I will not be able to move the market. And that's also not the goal. I have that watch. I'll keep it. I'll never sell it, hopefully, I think. I'm pretty positive about this. But I think it's a better 116508 than the John Mayer, and I think it's better than the Le Mans. Now, maybe I'll start talking a bit about the Le Mans, about what I like about that watch. Now, don't get me wrong, if I would get an allocation, of course, I would buy the watch. But, you know, at the same time, I think this hobby shouldn't, this watch collecting hobby, the goal shouldn't be to own every single watch out there. I think the goal of collecting is to build the perfect collection depending on A, your preferences, and B, your budget constraints. And when I say budget constraints, it doesn't necessarily mean money. I just mean it in more in form of maybe an equation. Sorry if this is a bit too academic, but I think either you set yourself a number of watches that you want to own, 5, 10, 15, I don't know, even more. Or you also have, of course, like most people, you have budget constraints in terms of cash. So the goal is not to own every single watch, but basically to own the ones that really speak to you and that make sense to you. And this one makes more sense to me than the Le Mans. Reason being that the Le Mans is being liked, and I understand it is being liked, but it's being liked for several reasons. And I think the primary reason is that people say, oh my God, Rolex, they gave us such a clear nod to the past. They did something that they never did before, or very rarely do. And they gave us a exotic dial, or a so-called Paul Newman dial, because they gave, and I try to include some pictures here, they gave us a reverse panda, so a black dial with white subdials. Now, to me personally, yes, that's true to some extent. The most interesting part, to be honest, on that Le Mans is what is called the Art Deco font that is being used on the subdials of the Le Mans Daytona. But this is more or less where it stops. Now, what I also like is, yes, they put on the ceramic bezel, and they included the new one, of course, with the outer ring in white gold. Now, this makes sense. It's also not to the past. Now, the see-through case back, I personally would have preferred if they just would have kept it for the platinum, but of course, it's also nice. Now, what I do not like so much, and maybe I start with the controversial stuff here, probably all of it is controversial, is that they included what they say is a new movement, and they changed the totalizer from 12 to 24 hours, so you would have it here at 9 o'clock. Now, I know these used to be tool watches and most people don't use them anymore, but I like the idea of actually using those watches what they're meant, you know, in the way that they're meant to be used. So I'll time everything with this watch from whatever, cooking, you know, parking a car, going somewhere, whatever, or actually driving somewhere, long distance drives, because I like that it's a vertical clutch, column wheel chrono, so you can keep it running without any you know, harm on the movement. So I like that you actually use those watches for what they're meant to be, what they were meant to be in the past. But having a 24-hour totalizer, now, number one, this is probably, if you think about it, the easiest thing to do, right? It's not a completely new movement if you just change it from 12, counting to 12 to 24. But more importantly, let's think about it. You race Le Mans, and not Daytona, but whatever. You race a long distance race. Now, you will probably not know whether you're during the race, whether you're in hour 1, hour 2, or in the 3rd hour of the race. But you will certainly know whether you are in hour 13 or in the 1st hour of the race. And this basically renders this addition obsolete. The second thing that I don't like is they give us the vintage cues with this Art Deco font on the dial, but they give us this new symmetric case, which is similar to the symmetric case that was used up until recently in the white gold and the rose gold and the platinum and all the Oysterflex models. But it would be more true if they would have used an asymmetric case like we had in the past on the yellow gold, on the steel, and on the two-tones. And also not just the width of it, of the case, but also the lugs are, in my opinion, much nicer. I'm sorry, the gloves are probably still too big. But the lugs, the shapes of the lugs are much nicer on those asymmetric cases. So that's also one thing that I don't like. Now, my biggest criticism is people look at it and say, oh, they gave us an exotic dial. Well, yes, they gave us the Art Deco, they gave us the black, dial with the white subdials. But that's it. They didn't give us a special chrono seconds hand. They didn't give us a 3rd color. And now you'll start to see why I think that this watch is actually so special, because what do we have here? You have first and foremost a black dial. Rolex called this one an intense black dial because it's a matte black dial. Now, how many Rolex sports watches do you know that actually have a matte dial or a matte black dial for that matter? Currently, really, it's really just a handful of Rolexes that have that. So this is special in its own way. And of course, a clear nod to the past, because those exotic dials, those Paul Newman dials, they were matte dials as well. Now also, back then when this was earlier this year, right? When they were still producing this watch in that iteration, they gave us this red chrono seconds hand, and that makes so much of a difference. And in addition to that, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see it, but the minute track, the outer track, is also in red. So in true Paul Newman or exotic dial fashion, we do have a matte dial with 3 different colors: matte black, champagne, and red, and a red seconds hand. And most people didn't notice that in 2021, when Rolex reintroduced or changed the dial on the 116505, that's a rose gold Daytona, the pink dial, how it was called back then, they changed it and called it a Sundust dial. And when they did that, they took away something from us. And what I mean by that is the different color of the chrono seconds hand. They went into the direction of being more elegant and less sporty and less exotic. What they also took away was the surroundings of the indices. I'm gonna try to include a picture as well. So the indices used to have black surroundings that were really sporty and had they also had a black chrono seconds hand. And now the new one had this, what is it? I guess rose gold chrono seconds hand in the same color as the rest of the handset, and the rose gold surrounded indices, so more elegant. And now if you look at the successor to this one, the, what is it called? The 126508, I believe. It's not the same. The red chrono seconds hand is gone. And if Rolex wanted to give us something truly special, which they did with the Le Mans, because it's very limited and exclusive, and they launched it in a very cool way, but at least they could have put a bit more effort in. I would have much rather preferred they would have, skipped the 24-hour totalizer, and instead of that gave us a special chrono seconds hand, maybe a black one with a white tip, or just a black one, or maybe even a white one. Imagine a white chrono seconds hand on that black dial, and maybe just that would be enough. And they did not. So in some way, they went above and beyond by going from 12 to 24 hours in the totalizer, by adding this ceramic bezel, but really, the devil's in the details, and I think this watch is much more special. And I'm not saying because I want to, you know, pump the price up. Of course not. I don't have that reach and I want to keep that watch anyway. But I'm just saying it is very interesting because this watch, the 116508, and the predecessor, I think it's the 116528, that dial existed for a very long time. And then you had Mr. John Mayer a couple years ago talking about that green dial and how special it is and how no one noticed it. But I really believe very few people noticed this. And it started to get a bit of attention when they released it in the Oyster Flex model, of course, when that was released. But this is, to me, probably the best, but certainly one of the best Daytonas you can buy today. And is very good value for money, I gotta be honest. Even the previous version. What I would not buy is the new version of this. Symmetric case, no red chronoseconds, and also the sub-dials, they changed. They don't have that circular pattern anymore. But look at this again, the white text on the matte black dial, it is just very, very special. So I think, bottom line, this is more exotic, this is more vintage, this is more special. This is the JPS, so to say, not a reissue, but a clearer nod is what I want to say to the past than the Le Mans. And I could have also shown you, and I'm trying to include a picture of this one as well, the same watch with the reverse dial, so to say, so champagne with black indices. But I just happen to prefer this one. I think this is, it just, I'm sorry, it just slaps more, so to say. So I hope this makes sense. I think if you're looking for a special Daytona, and especially if you want to buy it on the secondary market, look at those watches compared to the steel ones. This is really the one for me to have. And if you know, Waco once said that those current production Daytonas, so the 116 series, they are such good watches because they give you this vintage feel, and I very much agree if they don't have the ceramic bezel. They give you this vintage feel, but they fit very nicely on the wrist. They are 100 meters water resistance, they have 70 or 72 hour power reserve. You can do everything with this watch. The Daytona line, the 116, to me is really a one and done, whether it's a steel or a precious metal. Not a fan of the two-tone, but that's up to everyone personally, because at the end of the day, it's just a matter of taste. So I think this watch is much more special. Now, again, I'm going on for too long. That's my opinion. I'm going to do some more Daytona videos that I wanted to do anyway, but I decided this should probably be the first given the release of the Le Mans. As always, let me know what you think in the comments, and I'm going to stop the video right here. Take care.